what we do on the RevOps side is just make sure, that our sales and marketing team work effectively. We bring in new tools that really help progress our sales. Our end goal is to increase revenue, so we are really the backbone of making sure that everything's in place. We help with the processes, so how we get a lead from the very beginning to our website, all the way to a closed-won deal of onboarding a new customer, and then kind of the journey afterwards as well. So through this presentation, I'm going to show you a lot of the stuff that we do using decisions. We have a ton of tools in our ecosystem, but kind of the agenda is we're going to talk about a couple use cases. Some of them consist of the sales lead distribution, which we'll kind of get into. We have an ETL process, which is extract, transform, load data. So I'll show you how that works. So the use cases, the 4 that I'm going to present, these are like internal projects. They're mini projects out of all the ones that we've done. They consist of like how we automate our lead capture. So when someone comes to our website, they fill out a form, they become an inbound lead. So once we have that information, if they clicked on a Google ad, for example, we could send that ad or that ID back to Google and get a wealth of information about that person. We could also run their email address through ZoomInfo, and it tells us information about the company and that individual as well. I'll show that how we connect and orchestrate between applications. Some of these have native integrations, but sometimes we use decisions to help with this little data pipeline. There's going to be an example of how we kind of extend our CRM, our Salesforce. So it's a little bit of using Salesforce and decisions as one. And then finally, how we automate a lot of these processes. So just a little background, there's like 3 main areas of decisions. It's the rule engine, it's kind of our integrations and orchestrations, and then it's our workflow and custom applications. You can see for our rules engine, some examples of customers that we have. We have Nationwide Insurance, Roche Genentech. These are examples of why you would use the rule engine, like medical claims processing. So with the way I use it here on the RevOps side, we kind of do a little bit of everything. It's mainly like a back-end engine for us, but it's kind of cool to see some of these other customers, how they're utilizing decisions as well. So the orchestration layer, this is a big component of what I do. It's integrating with separate systems, pulling the data, doing something with the data, and then pushing it to another system, cleaning it, doing analytics and so forth. Some examples of other customers that do this is EK Health. We integrate with almost anything that has an API. If it has an API, if you're able to pull data from it, decisions can connect to it. I'll show you some of the tools that we've connected to using API as well. And then workflow and custom applications. I like to use Filmolay as an example. I worked on that project, so I'm not biased, but it was a pretty cool project that we did here at Decisions. If you do any type of filming in Los Angeles, you have to go through Filmolay. At Filmolay, it built a whole portal in Decisions, and if you wanted to do filming for a commercial, a movie, TV show, and it's in the LA downtown area, you submit an application through Decisions on the Filmolay portal. It will give you a permit. There's insurance behind it. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a very cool project, but it's a very great example of how they built a custom application using Decisions. They pretty much use everything. Their custom application was the portal. It was the workflows and rule engine, and then they did a lot of integrations too. So it's kind of cool to see some different customers, how they utilize Decisions. All right, 4 examples. Lead enhancement, lead distribution, extend and expand, ETL process. So I'll go into each one, and then I'll show you how I did in Decisions, answer any questions there as well. All right, so this is our tech stack. It's pretty big. There's 16 separate tools that we have. And then our team manages and controls all of these tools. So Salesforce, CRM, majority of people use Salesforce. They might be using HubSpot. But Gong was kind of talking about that, how Gong's a revenue intelligence platform. There's typically someone that will join our demos or phone calls when we have a meeting with a prospect. It does the recording of the meeting. It gets all the transcripts data. So in the ChatGPT demo that we did during the keynote, you can kind of see how that works. Google Ads is where we do most of our advertising on the marketing side. We do use Bing. There's a ton of information in Google Ads, but it's completely separated from Salesforce. There is integration, but there's not a lot you get out of it. So we had to do a lot of custom work there, in which I'll show you some of the stuff we did. 6 Sense. 6 Sense is a really cool tool. We got this in the past year. We use this mainly on our sales side. We buy intent data from them. And what intent data means is we have it hooked up to our website, and then we have keywords. So it tells us when accounts are searching keywords that might not be coming to our website. So what it does is it starts like getting information. It has an algorithm behind it, and it tells you how likely this person is going to buy your product or how good of a fit they are. Super cool tool. We love it. But it's another tool on our sales and marketing side. But essentially, we have all these tools. All these tools have a ton of data, and none of them really integrate well. All the data is separated. What we decided to do is use decisions, and we pull the data from every single one, and we dump it all into our Snowflake. Snowflake's our external database. It's a data warehouse. We wanted a central location so we could do more analytics, more advanced analytics. And then that's where Tableau comes into place. Tableau is where we build all our dashboards and reports, where we could, see all the information. So a good example is Google Ads in Salesforce. All our money that we spend, all that information is kept in Google Ads. And then when a lead comes to our website, they fill out a form, they get created in Pardot, which then goes into Salesforce. They're completely separate. So if you want to see, how much a cost per lead is, we spend money on specific campaigns, and those campaigns attract people to our website, and then they typically fill out a form, which that information is captured in Salesforce. We always want to see how well a campaign's performing. And the way we did this previously, we would have to go to Google Ads, download all the information. We would have to go to Salesforce, download all the information, create an Excel sheet, put all that together, and at that time, we only have relevant information at that point of time. I'll kind of get into this a little further, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys the overall tech stack that we have. Is there any questions about that before I kind of get into a couple of examples? All right, perfect. All right, so lead enhancement. So what is lead enhancement? When someone comes to our website, we have, I'm going to jump around a little bit. So if you were to come to our website today, you could see that we have all of these buttons. These are like call to action buttons. When someone clicks on it, there's this form that pops up. This is a Pardot form, which is Pardot is owned by Salesforce. So when someone fills in this information and they hit the submit button, a new lead comes into Pardot. They're considered as an inbound lead. If they click the Google ad, we'll have that information on this person, and that's all we have. If we wanted to learn more about that person or that company, who it is, we're able to pass that information directly into ZoomInfo. We're able to figure out who the company is, what is the annual revenue, how many employees there, where are they located, and then additional details about that person too. It's not always the case. Sometimes people put in their Gmail. ZoomInfo doesn't have information about you. Typically, most businesses, it does. And then on top of it, too, with this Google information, we're able to send, there's something called a G-CLID. It's a Google Click ID. When you click an ad, it generates a Click ID for you. And then now it's on our website. If you fill out a form, we have that information. I could send that back to Google Ads, and it'll tell me, interest, hobbies, age, location. It's crazy the wealth of information that's out there today. So we're able to use decisions when someone actually fills out that form. We have a scheduled job that kicks off that will pull all of the recent people that have filled out a form. It will check if there's a G-CLID. If it does, we'll send it to Google and say, hey, give me any information that you have. And then we also send it to ZoomInfo. and do the same thing. And I'll show you a couple examples. So the systems that we integrate for this particular project are Google Ads, Bing Ads. So the reason why we do those two is because of the IDs, trying to get additional information. Pardot, this is where all the people go to when they fill out a form. And then we'll also have ZoomInfo that does the enrichment of the person or contact or company. So a couple of examples. This information on the right-hand side, this Google information, these are the campaigns that we pay Google for. When you actually come and type into Google a specific term, it will display one of our ads. Once you click it, there's a campaign associated. AdWords is Google, and then that's the term. That's how we capture it. This is the click ID. I'm able to send that back to Google. I'm able to get like location, interests, age, and so forth. And you typically are not able to get this information unless you have, this is typically native. You can capture this information. Almost all companies do that, but the additional details about the age, location, that's a little custom. And then for the ZoomInfo piece of it, when we pass in your email address, so Derek at Decisions, when I send that to ZoomInfo, it probably has information about me, my title, my department level, my function, but it also has details about Decisions as a whole. What is our annual revenue, what industry we're in, what employee range, and so forth. So these are a couple of examples of the information that we could pull back directly from ZoomInfo. If I were to pass my name in there, Derek@decisions.com, and it did not return anything, we could strip the email and just say sendindecisions.com. Typically, the domain of an email is always the website URL of a company. Excuse me. So I'm going to jump into a workflow really quick and show you kind of how this works. So this is a scheduled job. This runs about every 5 minutes. And like I was saying earlier, when you kind of come to our website, you fill out a form. Right when you fill this out and hit submit, within about 5 minutes, what we do is we pull any new prospects that were created today. We filter them out. We'll send them directly to Google Ads. So this is the integration that we put into our server. And it will pull back any additional information, enrich that contact. It'll go back to Pardot and update it. We go into ZoomInfo piece of it. So I'll show you kind of that process, how this looks in Decisions. So we do the contact enrichment. The contact enrichment, we pass in the email address directly. So we kind of have to build it in a specific format that ZoomInfo wants it. So you can see we pass in the email address. We do the API call. It will give us results. If there's nothing that it found from this point on, like I said, we split the email. We split it at the @ sign, so Derek @ that all gets removed, and we contain the back part of it. And then we do the company enrichment by the website. Excuse me. So we say where company website equals X. Do you guys have any questions about kind of like that lead enhancement portion of it? It was a pretty cool process. It took us a little bit. It took us a while to kind of figure out exactly what we needed to do here. It was kind of trial and error. We had a lot of issues when we got Pardot. Pardot wasn't giving us great information about our Google, so we weren't able to really, we had all these leads coming into our system. We didn't know what campaign they were coming from. Excuse me. So it was really hard for us to, on the marketing side of things, say, this campaign is doing really well, let's spend more money here, or this one's not, so let's cut money out. And we kind of noticed that over a period of time, and then we started really making these changes, and everything started getting really better. So now we really have a good understanding of, what campaigns are working really well, what are a lot of terms that we should spend more money on to. So this is kind of like the part of the RevOps stuff. We make sure the data is really good in place, and then we provide the analytics to our marketing team where they can sit there and make the tweaks as necessary. So it's really our whole function here on my side of things. So the lead distribution. This is part two of what we were just talking about, the lead enhancement. So once we do, all the enrichment piece of it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just curious if you thought of including LinkedIn in that Zoom info vicinity. Like, just sometimes Zoom info has outdated information.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. We've explored it a little bit. We haven't actually built out a lot of the AP, like the integrations pieces of it to do it, automate it. It's something that we're looking into. It's been kind of a pain to set up, to be honest. But for the most part, like when we have our sales reps that are like working these accounts within Salesforce, our advice is always use LinkedIn Sales Navigator because typically that's where it's the most recent and most recently updated, especially with people. If someone was no longer at a company, you would notice it on LinkedIn before anything. Zoom info is delayed a bit. I think if we went to Zoom info right now and typed in my email address, it would say I'm a developer, which that was like 2 years ago. So you can kind of see it on information about yourself as well. No, but it's definitely an area that we're curious about and seeing how we do it. We just have not set up the integrations to do this.
And it's probably, if somebody's going to follow up with a lead, it's probably their first step anyway to look it up. So maybe it doesn't need to be part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, the way we do our process, so we have like a big BDR team, our business development representatives. When someone comes and fills out a form on our website, we first send out an email like right away. If we have the phone number, we'll try to call them. And then if there's no communication, LinkedIn is a part of that process. It's definitely a different channel, so you try to mix up these channels and see what's effective. People are on the LinkedIn. Like for me, for example, I don't really use Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I get the notification, so when someone messages me, I see it right away. Doesn't mean I'm going to respond, but I still see it. Any other questions? So those are good. Yeah, we're looking into it. I think there's a lot there. We just haven't really explored those opportunities. So lead distribution. So lead distribution is kind of after that piece. Like I said, we have a pretty large BDR team. There's 15 BDRs that work here at Decisions. We have 2 of them that are focused on inbound, so anyone that fills out these forms. But we also have another system called Qualified, which is our chatbot on our website. It's something new that we got within the last couple months. It's not highlighted here. It's in that top right corner. But we have a couple different sources where leads could come into Salesforce. We have Pardot, we have Qualified, we also have 6 Sense. So there's multiple ways that a new lead can come in. And if you're not on top of it, it gets very confusing, very quick. Leads go missing. Opportunities go missing, that does not make certain people happy. So what we wanted to do is really be on top of any new person that came in the system. We wanted to automatically assign these leads to specific reps on specific criteria. So it's kind of using our rule engine to determine how we handle these new inbound leads. And then, I don't know what keeps doing that. So there's a couple ways you could do this. So within this workflow, right, so we do the enrichment with Zoom info, and then the really last piece of this is how do we handle this lead? Should we just create it in Salesforce? Should we just create it in Pardot? Should we automatically assign it? Our use case is a little different. What we could do here is apply business rules. So if the annual revenue, like after the enrichment goes through, it was successful. If the annual revenue of the company is less than 25 million, we could assign it to our commercial sales team. If it's between 25 million to $1 billion, we could assign it to our mid-market, or we could do the $1 billion plus, which is our enterprise team. So that's how our team split. We could have rules to automatically assign new leads that come into the system and round robin those people. So that's one option, which we explored. We had a lot of BDRs that were kind of new to Decisions, so we wanted to get them more familiar, so we decided to use a time-based schedule. So what you can see is a report. This is the UI part of it. We allow our business development representative to come into Decisions. He's able to use this dashboard, define a schedule, And then the back end, when he makes a change, it automatically takes effect, and we're able to automatically assign any new lead from that point on to that person. So we wanted to do it by time. It was a little custom, but you could almost do this by business rules, like I said, like specific fields. Something cool that we did as well, we wanted the ability to round robin. So right now we have 2 inbound leads. We want to evenly distribute those new leads that come into the system to 2 people. So we created a functionality where you have the ability to turn on this round robin function. You can come in here, you can select whatever BDR that you would like on the team. It's automatically updated. If we hire a new BDR, they would automatically be synced to this. So it's very scalable, it's a very easy solution. There's a UI part of it, and then on the back end side, it's just able to crunch the numbers. We like using the round robin capabilities, just evenly assign them. So it's pretty cool functionality. Any questions there? So yeah, you can see, so this is the back end piece of it. We have a workflow in the background that's really determining, how to handle it. It kind of gets really deep in the weeds here, so I won't go too far. I just kind of wanted to show you. We're able to, round robin it and then determine who's the next person in line, and then automatically go back and push those updates to either Pardot or Salesforce. It's a pretty cool process. All right, when this thing takes the load. All right, so the third use case is called extend and expand. We recently did a project in Salesforce. So we use Salesforce for CRM, and after I started on the RevOps side, I didn't have a lot of experience within Salesforce. Salesforce is like a beast of its own. You have to understand how to develop in it. It has its own custom language. It has workflows similar to decisions, but it's very complex, and if you want to make changes, it's very hard. You typically have to hire people. We have a process where when we have an opportunity open with a prospect that's interested in buying our software and that wants to become a customer, we always have to send out a contract. Once they sign that contract, they become a customer on that term. So we had a process in place where our sales rep would reach out to our sales operations team and to request a quote. It would take about 24 hours for them to build a quote on behalf of the sales rep for that opportunity, which is a very long process. And if it was complex, it takes a lot of time. One of our sales operations manager was going on maternity leave that handled all these contracts. So we were going to have a big problem. We were going to have to figure out either hire someone temporarily, come up with a new process. We reached out to Salesforce. They have something called CBQ. CBQ is like a quote generation, and we went down the path of vetting that tool to adding to our tech stack. We already have Salesforce license. We were going to have an add-on. It came out to be about $40,000 just for the product itself. And then there was going to be about 8 to 10 weeks of development, which we were going to have to hire a consultant to do, which could have cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So if you look at this whole project, just being able to generate a quote automatically was going to cost us about $55,000. And the team already doesn't like me spending money, so we had to come up with something pretty quick. So for this, I'm going to show you how we integrated Salesforce with decisions on an opportunity. We have Slack in there where we have the ability to send out notifications. So I'm actually going to go into Salesforce really quick and show you what this looks like. A lot of people do use CPQ. CPQ could be really good for like a really complex process. We don't really have a really complex product. We have a couple offerings that we have. This is test data, by the way, so don't worry. We're just going to kind of go in here. So don't worry about the amount or the opportunity itself. There's 2 pieces to this. We had to do a little bit of development in Salesforce. We had to create the fields that we needed. So if we looked at the planning phase of it, It probably took a couple weeks to plan, maybe like 1 to 2 weeks, 3, just to make sure we had all our ducks in a row. The actual development was super quick. Once we had a plan in place, once we got into Salesforce, and then did the decisions back end, it was probably about 4 weeks in total, start to finish. And that's including the planning process. But here, we have an opportunity. Our sales reps work directly out of Salesforce. We gave them the ability to add a product. A product is our software. So they come in here, they could say that we want to start on the 13th or 31st of May. It's going to be billed annually. It's a year contract, right? It's just basic information. We wanted the ability to give our reps a way to automatically generate a quote directly out of Salesforce. So we integrated this button. This button calls decisions. Decisions calls back Salesforce. It gets all the information it needs, and then it will automatically spit out a quote for the person to download and send to the customer directly. So the first step to it, it just wants to ask a valid through date. This is called the fear of missing out. When you set a date, and especially when you apply a discount, typically most people will meet that date. But it's a psychological way of going about it. But you can see how quick that was. I just generated a quote in a matter of seconds by clicking a few buttons, and now we have a contract that's downloadable. They can download it as a Word document in case they want to make any changes to it. It's typically not the case. And it has a couple of our, like the way we sell our software, we sell it by server. But this makes it extremely fast, saves a ton of time, and it's very customizable. It's dynamic in a way, in which I'll show you. So, say that we want to add professional services to it. Typically, when we bring on a new customer, they're new to decisions. They don't know where to get started. They typically need a little bit of help from our professional services. We offer a couple packages that are typically discounted to kind of really help them get started. So in this example, I'll add professional services to the opportunity itself. And then when I actually generate the quote the second time, you'll notice that again, we have to ask the valid through date. And then it's automatically going to add a whole new section that wasn't there before. So you can see how dynamic it is. We're able to use decisions to have rules in place. We could build this document in HTML, put it into a document viewer. You could download it as a PDF, and then we could really expand upon this. Say that we want to integrate with DocuSign. We could add that ability right here where they could have a button say, send as DocuSign. They type in the person's email, boom, all done.
It would die. You have too many characters for their HTML to handle.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes you do hit issues like that, and you got to find a little workaround. But it's the beauty of doing decisions. You're able to typically find a way around it. But no, it's a cool process. With the amount of money that we were about to spend, and a lot of times a lot of people have this issue, they don't know what they do. They get stuck in a situation where they have to spend a lot of money to kind of get out of a hole that they're in. And we've hit it plenty of times over here on the RevOps side, and luckily, I've been here for about 3 years, and I started on our PS team where I got some pretty good experience building in decisions. And now I kind of have the creativity to be able to do stuff like this. So it's just showing how well decisions complements tools like Salesforce. We do have a couple use cases of customers actually using decisions as a backend rule engine for Salesforce too. So it's very cool. And then the last thing I'm going to show you guys today, I forgot to show out that there's notifications that send out. So when I generated that quote, I could just show you my email real quick. You can see that it automatically sends out a notification to a professional services team of a new opportunity is coming their way, so they're aware to expect that there might be a little bit of they're aware of what's happening in Salesforce. So we're trying to keep the communication tight. So this is the example of an email. There's Slack messages that go out as well. So it's just a quick, cool example. Any questions there? All right, so ETL process. in the beginning when I was talking about how we have all those tools, we have all that data, we want to put everything into a central location. The way you do that is you either do it by a ELT or ETL. So ETL is extract, transform, load. There's times where you just extract, load, and then you have the database transform. What we were able to do is actually do that in decisions. I vetted a couple tools to do this. I didn't really know the best way to go about this. Like Salesforce offers something called MuleSoft. It's like a pretty cool integration tool. I didn't really get deep in the weeds there and what they offer. But since we had decisions, we were playing around with this idea of seeing if we could accomplish it and seeing how far we could get with it. And again, this is our whole tech stack. We kind of took it section by section. Like when I started, we were really focused on marketing, and then we started really being focused on our sales side. Then we started being really focused on our BDRs. So it started with Salesforce, then it went to Google, and then it kind of just went down to everything. So one of the things that we have LinkedIn there, the Sales Navigator. LinkedIn has ads directly involved in it, so you could do ads for LinkedIn. So we pull the ad data. There's additional information there. Sometimes they require different licenses. So with this, like I said, there's definitely a lot of other tools. It was a lot of trial and error when we were doing this. We have a database, Snowflake. Snowflake is very powerful. It accepts documents, CSV documents. So what we have to do in decisions, we have to extract the data. I'll show you a couple examples. This is our internal server, so you can kind of see all the different projects we do. We're only demonstrating about 4 of them, but we have tons in here. We have a ton of Salesforce automations, and that's typically where I work. But in here, I will show you an example of how we extract information out of Salesforce, how we transform it, and then how we actually load it directly into the database. So that we created a data pipeline. It's a schedule. Like this thing runs about every 30 minutes, and it's pulling a ton of information from all these different sources. This one is pulling account records directly from Salesforce. So we have an integration that we built out. We have a module for Salesforce which you're able to use. Sometimes it meets the needs of what we're trying to do. Sometimes it doesn't. So I try to work with the product engineering team to really kind of help enhance our product, especially for my use case. I'm sure other people would do similar things. But we pass in a query. We make this dynamic, and we pull in the records that were modified or created within the last 30 minutes. We transform that information into a CSV document, and then we send that information directly to Snowflake. So we have an integration with Salesforce here. We pretty much handle all the information within the workflow. We create a document automatically, and then we send that document to Snowflake, and Snowflake just consumes it. And then on our reporting side, we have Tableau. It's listening to Snowflake, and it automatically refreshes. So if I were to go into Tableau, I would have the most relevant information based on all the information that's working here. So it's a continuous data pipeline. This thing is running all the time. It took a while to set it up. This has been going on for about 8 months, 8-month long project. But the reason why it's so long is because we're constantly adding, we're constantly finding new ways to get better. We found that old ways weren't working, so we're going to do new things. And that could be within decisions. It could be stuff that we're doing on the outside. We need more information. We got another tool. We got to put up some new workflows. So it's very cool. I definitely have enjoyed this process. It's touched a lot of different areas. And Snowflake's very powerful for databases. You could send this thing a 2 million, 5 million row CSV. It'll consume it in seconds. So it's very powerful. But it mainly works with CSVs. So that's the only downfall. If you do not have CSVs, it could be a little bit of a longer process. Well, cool. That was the 4 separate use cases that I wanted to show you guys today. I could leave it up for the next 5 minutes for any questions that you guys have. And again, these are just 4 separate use cases we've done. There's plenty of stuff that we do here on the RevOps side using decisions, but they're pretty cool to showcase.
Which
Yeah.
piece did you find
It's a great question. I think the ETL process was the most challenging. I mean, because even like looking for a tool, like before we decided to try to use decisions, like I didn't know where to start. You know, I didn't really know what I was looking for, how to go about this. But with the ETL process, I mean, you're creating tons of integrations. So if you saw that we had like 16 tools, I have to create a separate integration for each and every single one. I have to vet, test it, make sure the data quality's there, that it's actually pulling the right information on the right schedule. And then once you get into the database, you know, it's a lot of QA. So it's a ton of work. I mean, the ETL process has definitely been a headache, to be honest, but once you get it working and once you get it right, I mean, it's streamlined at that point. All you gotta do is maintain. But overall, it was probably the most challenging just because I didn't know where to start with it. And then once you kind of get into it, you think it's gonna be really easy, and then it's not. So especially playing with CSV documents, if you understand like how the CSV has to be structured, like say we're pulling from Salesforce, right? The data's messy. You have salespeople in there just typing whatever they're typing. You know, they hit enter, they put a bunch of spaces, commas, and then we try to pull that information and then put it in the CSV. It doesn't work pretty well. So there's a lot of like cleaning it, making sure it's right, it's accurate. But I think I liked that project the most, but at the same time, it was the biggest headache, and it took the longest. And it's still ongoing, so yeah. It's a good question, though. Yeah.
Most of the process that you're running, kind of like whole processes of pulling data from Google, Salesforce, et cetera, versus like listening for various events and getting it pushed?
It can be. So it's a good question. Like in regards to like Google, that information never changes. So like everything that happened yesterday is going to stay as it was. So we just pull that. We just pull that on a daily schedule. In Salesforce, we could have a way, like you almost have to build functionality in Salesforce to then trigger decisions. What we do instead is we allow it to run on a schedule. So there might be a little bit of a time delay. I think the closest thing that we could do is 5 minutes with a decision, so you could create a scheduled job that runs every 5 minutes. So instead of building functionality in that system, we just have a schedule that is just looking for anything new or updated. But if we did want to have like a push, in Salesforce, if there was like an event that occurred, something that happened, we could build an integration that talks to decisions and have it automatically like push data there. So there's capabilities. We haven't really explored it too much just because we found that the scheduled jobs within decisions actually worked out pretty well for us. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Go check out the ChatGPT thing. You guys are going to be pretty impressed if they show it. Thank you.